Welcome back. Well, as you know, last night was an interesting night and a major turning point in the election for President of the United States. And Oregon's primary is coming up a week from Tuesday, so this is going to be interesting to watch. But what a delight to have with us today our good friend Megan Barth. She is the proprietor and founder of ReaganBaby.com, one of the great websites. You need to check it out, ReaganBaby.com. And I'm not sure she's already left the country because it looks like I'm Skyping her in from the Bahamas somewhere. Are you one of those that says if he gets elected, I'm out of here?
Heck no. You know, I actually have been a Trump supporter for probably since the beginning of this year. I was encouraged to join or jump on the Trump train, I guess, as you would call it, after the Michelle Fields incident. I thought that was just a scurrilous farce. Yeah. And it pushed me towards Trump after that. So I wish I was in the Bahamas, but no, I'm in Las Vegas.
I know you are. Your background is beautiful. Well, Megan, quite a turn last night. It wasn't just a win. It was a landslide, and Bernie walked all over Hillary. What's going on here?
Yes, he did. And, you know, you look at the exit polls of where Bernie really resonated, and he won the majority of the white women vote. And that's what I've been saying. Hillary Clinton has a real problem with women. She doesn't like to admit it. She likes to pander to us, but she's not polling well. 70% of the general public find her untrustworthy. They find her to be a liar. A majority of women feel the same way. And therefore, the Democrat women are rallying around Sanders, much like the millennials, and also men that were 45 and younger rallied around Sanders.
Wow. Well, they got some big states ahead. Of course, California, the big one, but you have Oregon and Washington. I have to tell you, I expect Bernie to take Oregon.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's his state for the taking. I won't be surprised when he takes it. But, you know, here's the thing. Everyone wants to keep talking about this rift in the GOP. And of course, I'm not going to ignore it. Yes, we are at a time where there's ideologies that are battling of who's more conservative than the other. But let's look at the Democrats. The Democrats are in disarray. Bernie is going to go to Philadelphia, I believe is where the convention is, or Pittsburgh. I'm not sure. I think it's Philly. And he is really going to give Hillary Clinton a run for the money. And you have to ask yourself, with the millennial vote, who Bernie is decimating Hillary with the millennials, are they really going to, when Hillary gets the nomination, because we assume that she will, are they really going to rally behind Hillary, a woman that represents everything that they can't stand? She represents Wall Street. She represents the DNC establishment. She represents the politician. And this is a year of an outsider. Because Trump rose so well, you look at the polling exit polls of Indiana, 60% of voters wanted someone outside politics. They wanted the outsider. Now, you can say, yes, Bernie's been a senator for eons, but he speaks as an outsider. He isn't tied to Wall Street. He isn't tied to big money. So, you know, this is what the millennials are looking for, especially as the millennials a majority of them, quote unquote, don't like capitalism, even though they're using iPhones and Apple computers and everything else.
Well, let me give you a couple scenarios and have you respond. At the end of the day, whether it's Hillary or Bernie, but at the end of the day, they're both representing socialism, maybe one a little bit more than the other. So we're going into an election where the battle is capitalism versus socialism.
And I wrote about this. I wrote about this on Reagan Baby, called Capitalism versus Socialism.
Did you really? I haven't been there yet, so today. But really, well, there you go. Because it's not left or right.
No, it's
not.
Or down.
Huh?
It's up or down.
Yeah, there you go.
And this was, and I've heralded this speech oftentimes, and perhaps on your show and other shows. And like I said, I wrote about this on my blog. This is our time for choosing. This is 1964. This is the Reagan speech. This is where we are either going to go into the ash heaps of totalitarianism, or if we are going to rise as a nation on the basis of capitalism, faith, and freedom and liberty. And this is our time for choosing. This is what this election is about. And so I do hope, and I would make a plea to the Cruz supporters or the Never Trump crowd to really look at this election as a battle of our country's identity. Between, are we going to be a socialistic country because we simply can't afford 4 more years of a Barack Obama administration, which Hillary Clinton has promised us? But can you take the risk with Donald Trump as a capitalist, as someone who knows how to create the environment to create jobs, as someone who has promised to build a wall, defeat ISIS, and protect our country from foreign invaders? And if he just completes one promise, which he has promised the American people, we will be better off as a nation.
All right. Boy, this opens up so much here. Hope we can get it all in. Look, we are in an interesting spot. And last night, the crew stepped out, and all the emotions that go with that probably going to take a couple of days to settle down. But as I said earlier on the news program today, I really think the best thing that Cruz can do is hop on a plane and go to Donald right now as we're talking and saying, "You won, congratulations. I'm sorry for the words you said to me. Hopefully you are sorry for the words you said to me. Let's get this thing behind us and move on." I don't know if he'll do that, but boy, that's what needs to be done. And that brings up the question, how does Trump win over Cruzites?
Yeah, the emotions are so raw right now. And so, you read social media and you just kind of have to shut it off and say, oh, just wait a few days. They'll calm down. They'll get their bearings again and we'll move forward. I was really missing one part in the Cruz speech last night, which was, I wish he would have congratulated Trump on his win. He did not do that. I wish he called for party unity. He did not do that. I think this is really the heralding call that we need right now. We need to unify against the left. The left is very good at unifying. However, they are in disarray. Like I said, they are completely split. The Democrats have an issue on their hands right now, a big issue, and that is Bernie Sanders as well as Hillary Clinton's investigation and trustworthiness as polled amongst the voters. So I would like to see some olive branches extended by both campaigns. But we need to look beyond apologies at this point. We need to look at unification and how we coalesce as a party of conservatives, as a party of libertarians, the big tent party. We need to be a big tent. And this is what Donald Trump has shown us. He has crossovers. He has Trump Republicans, which we haven't seen since Trump Democrats, which we haven't seen since Reagan Democrats. So we need to make sure that all of these facets that are coming into the Republican Party, which we have talked about wanting for so long, can unite. And that includes the constitutional conservatives. So far, the evangelicals are all on board on the Trump train. So we have those of faith that have aligned themselves with Mr. Trump. So now what we need to do is have the quote unquote constitutional conservatives realize that the Constitution will be completely shredded by a socialist like Hillary Clinton, who believes that the Constitution is a living document. Meaning that it will change in accordance to her whims. And once she starts attacking the Second Amendment, the First Amendment will follow thereafter, and the Fourth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment, and the list goes on and on.
So, what do you think's going on behind closed doors at the RNC today?
Well, I think really everyone's mind is kind of blown, because if we were to listen to all of the smart talking heads for the last 9 months, everyone was telling us, all of the pundits and writers in the Washington Beltway and the consultants, that he had no chance, that Trump had absolutely no chance. He wasn't even going to break the ceiling at 30%. Well, sorry to break it to you, but he got 60%. And his numbers keep rising. He's polling right now at 59% nationally. He's even beating Hillary Clinton in a Rasmussen poll by 3 points. So I think that the RNC has finally accepted the fact that he is the presumptive nominee. And if we go by Reince Priebus's words, he said that Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee. And Donald Trump will get 1,237 votes before the July convention.
So by doing that, that stops vote ballot number 2 and 3, doesn't it?
Correct.
So at that point, it's just a straightforward convention.
Right. Thank God, because I'm going.
Yeah. Not.
I was like, do I have to get out the brass knuckles and Kevlar vests for the riots, or what's going on?
Well, so, I've been to those conventions both as a state chairman and as a delegate, and I can tell you they can get a little rough at times. And I'm glad to see now what was going to be the big bombshell taken out of the room. So we'll see what happens. But on the other hand, what does a Cruz, a Rubio, and a Kasich do with their delegates? They just subordinate?
I think here, I always go back to human psychology when I look at people's behavior. And one thing that drives people to attach themselves to a person is the fact that the person's winning. People want to be on the winning team. They attach themselves to a winner. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of delegates kind of go with the flow and get on the Trump train and go, with Trump. I'd like to see Trump start to pick his VP and start to put names forward. And we have to keep in mind, if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, she is going to most likely pick a Hispanic running mate. Julian Castro, for example, I believe, or perhaps Raul. I think it's his brother or his brother. I can't remember his first name, but the Castro brothers are the top two that I see. Now, the Castro brothers, so were raised by a Marxist mother, and they are both La Raza open borders advocates. So we need to keep that in mind, and I'm sure that Trump is doing that. I would really like to see him pick somebody like a Marco Rubio, who speaks from a Hispanic perspective, a Cuban perspective, and who speaks on the greatness of America like I have never really heard another candidate speak. He's an excellent orator, and I think he's young enough where a vice presidential spot would be great for him, and he can kind of grow into the executive position of president.
All right, let me take a break because there's some other names floating around. I want to get your response. All right, Megan Barth with us. ReaganBaby.com. There's the website and the blogs you need to read and go to ReaganBaby.com. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Okay, we're back, and what a delight to have with us. Love her energy, love her politics, and I think her website is a must-go to, ReaganBaby.com. Megan Barth is with us today, responding to last night the primary out of Indiana, which has pretty much changed the course and has, I would say at this point, has made Donald Trump the nominee on the right. Hillary still got a little bit of a spanking last night. But she still has a huge lead in the delegates and the superdelegates, with California, Oregon, and Washington still out there. I think Bernie probably takes Oregon and Washington. I don't know about California. We'll see what happens. But we're talking about Trump now. What does he do? Does he look for a vice president? Where does he go with all of this? You're saying that Marco Rubio, I think that they have had some behind-the-scenes talk because they seem to be getting along fairly well. And I think your reasoning behind Marco Rubio makes a ton of sense. Let me ask you this. Another name that's floating around is Condoleezza Rice, and primarily because she's polling above Barbara Boxer in California. Now, if California is going to go for Condi Rice, isn't that an indicator?
Wow. I didn't hear that one. So, I think that there is a broad swath. Look, we started with 17 excellent candidates on that dais, everyone with different backgrounds and nationalities and different stories. And so, there is a wide range of people that he can pick from. And I think that who he picks will definitely give him a boost amongst perhaps, disaffected Cruz supporters, as well as independent voters and undecideds. So I think when I look across the aisle at the Democrats, they're pretty much pigeonholed. But we look at the GOP and we look at Donald Trump and his message. He can really pull in anybody to help him rise. But it does definitely have to be somebody with name recognition. It has to be somebody like a Marco Rubio or someone that was on that dais, or even Condi Rice. I've heard Susana Martinez out of New Mexico, who is the first Hispanic female governor. She's great. I've watched her speak before, but I wonder if she has enough national panache, so to speak, to really give him the boost he may need.
Yeah, I agree with you. By the way, just back to Ted Cruz just for a moment. It appears, and I want to say this respectfully, so those who are for Ted Cruz, and I have never announced who I'm for or against, so I'll just leave it at that, because I had to stay on the air and live to the next day. It appears, Megan, that he kind of self-destructed. I mean, he was okay with Trump till about January, then he went after him. Yeah. He had his dad going out scolding the evangelicals, and then here comes Carly Fiorina, and I thought, man, this whole combination just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I kind of questioned the tactics, but you look at his funding, and his major funding was only coming from 3 donors. And so I always said he's going to perhaps get desperate when those 3 donors start getting desperate. And that's really kind of what I would say his implosion was about. Was he tried to play a political game, which he wasn't really known for. He was more known. He was known as a political guy, but he was also known of staying above the fray. And so when he started getting down and dirty and sending out his surrogates like his dad or Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck is a Mormon and he's lecturing Christians on how to worship and how to vote, and that just fell on my deaf ears. But I think that the folks that he surrounded himself in the public eye didn't really do any, it certainly didn't help him. As far as the last breath and last hope of Carly Fiorina, that went nowhere, much like the alliance with Kasich. So as he got more desperate, he got more personal, and I think that's really what hurt him.
And you mentioned all the elements there, so that's good. Well, that's water under the bridge. We'll see if Cruz, if he will send an olive branch to Trump and for the sake of the party. That's yet to be seen. I realize right now everything's pretty raw, so that needs to all kind of settle down. How does Trump go after Bernie Sanders' millennials?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, some of the millennials, like I said, will never vote for Hillary Clinton because she represents everything that they can't stand. As a capitalist trying to appeal to a bunch of socialists, that's going to be interesting. But I think he really needs to talk, especially if he picks Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio has one of the best college plans I have heard. Marco Rubio also had debt. So he can help, I think he can help the millennial vote by having a strong VP pick. He can also put out Ivanka Trump. I think as far as a woman's vote is concerned, I think Ivanka is a definite ace up his sleeve to try to rally the women's vote. But millennials are an interesting breed. And the millennials usually aren't that trustworthy to get to the polls in the first place. But this energy behind Bernie is something that we have not seen. And so I think that Trump really needs to talk about jobs. I think he needs to talk about college education. And I think he still needs to speak as raw and unadulterated as he has spoken, and talk about the fact that he is an outsider. This is what the millennials want. And this is what I think the millennials will hang their hats on. Not all of them, but I think he can capture, even if he captures 10% of Bernie millennials, that's a good percentage.
All right, so the Trump campaign now goes into a different mode. They even indicated last night he took some shots at Hillary Clinton, calling her the crook.
Crooked Hillary. Love it.
So here's the deal. What he got criticized for in the primary process by going after fellow Republicans is probably the very thing he needs to do to go against Hillary, while at the same time he needs to be seen now as presidential for the Republicans. Can he pull it off?
Yeah, I really don't think that he needs to change his style of attack, quite frankly. It's been very effective for him, whether it's nicknames or, let's take this in mind, Perry. When she came out and started calling him a sexist, he attacked her husband, Bill. Well, that shut her up pretty quick. So she really can't play the sexist or the gender card or the quote unquote woman card too much longer. And I think what we're going to see is Donald Trump is really going to focus his efforts and all of his weaponry against the enemy, which is Hillary Clinton. I don't really think that she's going to be able to withstand much of it because she can't really run on her record. She can only run on hyperbole. And like she said the other day, well, if playing the woman's card means, equal pay for all women, then deal me in. Well, the fact is, Hillary, you only paid your staff of women 72 cents on the dollar. So why didn't you deal those cards much earlier? So she's a political opportunist, as she always has been since she entered politics. And I think that he'll definitely fire the cannons across the bow, and she's going to have a formidable opponent.
There's still some uncertainty here. There's a real possibility that a recommendation for an indictment pops up somewhere along the line here. Now, what the president does with that and the Justice Department does with that is yet to be seen. But nonetheless, it's a real possibility. And then you got Trey Gowdy sitting over here in the corner as the chief chairman of this Benghazi investigation. I can't help but think all this stuff is being stockpiled to come out, say, August, September.
Yeah, I would think that that might be the fall surprise. They probably won't wait till October, but there's always a surprise in election cycle, and it's usually called the October surprise. But there are a lot of surprises, I think, waiting for Hillary Clinton. Now, is there going to be an indictment? Well, when you got 175 FBI agents on your tail, it smells like an indictment to me. I don't think as many resources would be put on the job if there really wasn't something there. There's also a lot of subpoenas going out for information, like the hacker Guccifer that hacked into the account. So there's much going on behind the scenes, and I do not expect there to be charges brought against her because we're dealing with a lawless administration. A DOJ that does not look through the objective lenses of justice, more of a colored lens of justice and an ideology. So I don't expect charges, but I would expect a recommendation for indictment. But you got to think, Perry, do the Hillary supporters really care? I mean, I don't know who scares me more, Hillary Clinton or her followers. Because it doesn't seem like anything really matters to them. It doesn't seem like character, integrity, honesty, ethics, and morality are important to her voters. I think it's important to the average American voter, and that's why she's polling at 70% of the people think she's a liar.
All right, a couple quick questions before we run out of time. You had mentioned that there's a parallel between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan, primarily as it relates to maybe bringing in Democrats to the fold. Yeah. And we do have we have some showbiz people that have now made it into politics. If you were to give Donald Trump one piece of advice, what would be the Megan Barth piece of advice to Donald Trump?
Wow. I haven't been asked that question before. I think I would say really just go back to the platform, the Republican platform in 1980 and 1984, and reread some of Reagan's speeches. Reagan was an excellent orator. He actually broke the gender gap. He was the first and last president to do so for the Republican Party. He got 56% of the women's vote. How did he do that? Well, look at the platform of 1984. He spoke to women like they were men. He spoke to us as all equal Americans. He didn't divide us into groups. He didn't see women as a monolithic group. He spoke to us because he knew that we weren't better off than we were 4 years ago. And women ultimately will vote for a leader who they can trust, and as any American does. But women also vote with our pocketbooks. We are the managers of many households. We are the number one growing entrepreneurs and small business owners in this country. So for Donald Trump, I would say, if you want to speak to women, look at how Reagan spoke to women and get Ivanka out on that trail.
All right, I want people to know I have that on videotape. That answer.
Oh, you do?
I'll send it to you. You can put it on your website. How's that?
I love it.
All right, good to see you again. Thank you. Well, it's an interesting time, many fun days ahead, and looking forward to having you be part of it. Let's stay in touch, but I will send you a copy of today's program. You can hack it and use it. How's that?
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Okay, you too. All right, Megan Barth. And again, ReaganBaby.com. That's the website, and go to her blog and participate. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.